What if a Mario Kart track plays like a pinball machine? Okay, but does it make you feel like a pinball? Hey everyone, I'm Lawrence, the marketing director for Absolute Momentum, our multiplayer parkour racing game. In addition to marketing, I also act as a level designer and software engineer for the team when needed. My role was to block out a racetrack for Absolute Momentum using Ben's new movement system. For those who aren't familiar, blocking out in game development is when you design a level using simple shapes. This allows the designer to prototype quickly and ensure the level is actually fun before adding any environmental assets. We had a few track designs from our previous iterations of the game, but these utilized an older movement system and didn't feel as satisfying with our latest version of the movement. Our software engineer Ben created a smaller racetrack for us to reference and design our own levels. After playing around with Ben's racetrack, I got some ideas on how I wanted to approach mine. I know I wanted the player to start off with a bang. In my mind, the player should accelerate quickly in order to hit. However, there was one major problem. We didn't have any items or environmental hazards yet integrated into the new build of the game that would allow for this burst in acceleration. But what if we placed a giant ramp at the start of the map? This would allow the player to slide down to increase their acceleration and hit. The other idea I had was inspired by the CW Flash TV show. You know, the one from the 2010s, the one where the main character is like, Iris West, I'm the fastest man alive, and I'm basically your brother, but I love you. Oh, Barry. We're practically siblings. But sure, despite the writers establishing perfectly good partners for us in earlier seasons, let's get romantical. Wow, this show is so good. 14-year-old me loved that show. Not for the romance or the sibling part. Just want to clarify. On paper, it seems obvious that there would be inspiration from DC's most iconic speedster. What I'm pulling from the CW show specifically is my memory of Barry Allen racing side by side with another speedster or running through the Speed Force and something else would interrupt him. The idea of running through these hallways in parallel with other players sounded really entertaining. With our item system currently in the works, I thought it would be a really cool opportunity to have the items at the beginning of these segments, which split off into several parallel hallways. These runways would contain gaps every few meters to enable players to attack other racers or enter their runway. I blocked out these two parts of the level pretty quickly, but then I found a significant issue. Having the player go all the way down at the beginning of the race means that they have a long climb to get back up. Creating a long ramp going up isn't really that exciting, since the player can't really gain much momentum going upwards. I had to find other ways to bring up the player while still keeping the level engaging. After the hallway, I created this ramp going up and added a wall for the player to bounce off of to turn a sharp corner and build up some speed, before entering a valley that leads to another wall to take another sharp turn. I placed some walls for the player to bounce on before they go up another ramp so they could build up some more speed. Around this area, I have the player wall run to bring themselves up a bit before making another sharp turn. From here, the path narrows and the player wall runs their way to the top of the map. At the peak, we ended the lap with another 3-segmented runway for the player to run through. This time though, there are smaller valleys and gaps for the player to engage with and build up more speed before getting launched at the very end and carrying over all that speed and velocity to the beginning ramp of the next lap. While there are some areas to clean up geometry wise, I'm pretty happy with this primary path. The pacing works well with the burst of speed at the beginning, then slowly build up an engaging climb to the top, only to be rewarded with another burst of speed to enter the next lap. What I found while playtesting, especially with these back-to-back walls, is running through the track feels like a pinball machine, where you are constantly timing your bounces to build up as much speed as possible to reach. With the primary path blocked out, I wanted to create smaller alternative paths and shortcuts to provide options for the players. The first shortcut is after the initial hallway segment. When hitting the valley, instead of wall running to make the sharp turn to the right, the player has the option to enter a slight gap to the left and wall run to an alternative path. What they'll find is a segmented route of panels and walls. When played properly, the player can boost themselves to surpass all other players during this segment of the race. However, it can be very difficult. The amount of gaps means that any easily mistimed jump sends the player back to the beginning of the initial checkpoint. I really love the idea of shortcuts that reward player expression, and this path encourages players to learn the movement and speed ahead to the front. The other path I added acts more of an alternative route than a shortcut. After turning this corner, the player is given another option to get to the top of the map. This path splits off but quickly rejoins the primary path, providing options to the player. This also helps any weird angles that the player might be coming from with this jump and the shortcut. This is what the full level looks like blocked out. I'm working closely with our artists to figure out what environment works best with this racetrack. As we continue to build levels for the game and develop more features, I'll find changes to make to this track, so the structure might look very different from how it's presented now. Thank you for taking the time to watch this devlog. I hope you found it interesting. If you really enjoyed the style of animated content, I do a lot more Blender animations on my YouTube channel Emergency Player. More importantly though, if you're interested in this game, like and subscribe to PyDev Studios for more devlogs, and wishlist our game, Absolute Momentum, on Steam, link in the description below.